Miss, are we a quorum? I see member.
Morning.
Good morning.
And morning also to the department. I know.
Morning, Chair.
Yeah, I saw CFO is here, Mr. Divet is here, Camilla is here, Anwar is here, and I didn't see the HOD. So if there's someone that I didn't mention, you will introduce yourselves. I see a hand before we start, members. Who's raising a hand?
The HOD, Ms. Maseko, has indicated given her apology. She is going to be with Minister on that ministerial oversight result.
Okay.
Chairperson.
It's okay. CFO.
Good morning, Chairperson. Good morning, honorable members. I'm driving. I'm listening because I'm very interested in what you're doing. So I will not be part of the meeting, but I'm listening because I need to be on top of it. Okay. So if you don't mind, I'm just in the background. I'm listening in. Okay.
Okay. Thank you very much for the clarity, CFO. Thank you very much. Okay, you can lower your hand then. Okay, without wasting any time, members, just for the record, let's introduce ourselves. My name is Matlodi Maseko, and I'm the Standing Committee Chair for Human Settlements.
And Derek America, member of the committee.
Member Danville Smart, alternate member.
Morning, Chair, everyone. Pet Moran, alternate member.
Okay. Thank you very much, members. And again, I need to say I do appreciate your indulgence because I know the coming months will be hectic with the by-elections, and we have weekly meetings that on the parliamentary program, that most of the times when we are supposed to have the meetings, we are going to have a problem of not being able to do that due to one reason or another. The second one, it will be the bills that are coming that might disturb us to have the meetings. So I just made sure that I slot in this meeting and not shift it because it has been on the agenda for quite some time. So the agenda for today, we are going to deal with the partnerships that are in the pipeline with the department, because most we have been talking about the partnerships. So for today, it's specifically in the rural areas to check how far is that going, or how is it working, or if there are any challenges. We'll hear from the department, and then after will be adoption or consideration of the minutes of yesterday's meeting. So without wasting any time, I'm going to hand over to, I think Anwar is the one that is going to do the presentation with the support of Camilla. Over to you, Camilla.
Chair.
I see your hand. Okay, sorry, Camilla, Member Maran?
Yeah, Chair, no, I just want to let you know that I need to leave this meeting by 10:15. So I will stay in this meeting until 10:15. Just thought.
Okay, thank you very much, Member. I think by 10:15, because we don't have a lot of agenda, we will be done.
That will be good.
Okay. Okay, thanks. Camilla, I recognize you, ma'am.
Good morning. Good morning. Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you, members. I have been asked by the HOD just to give an introduction to this particular topic, and Anwar will then present the the content of the presentation, if that's okay.
It's okay. You can go on.
Okay, thank you very much. So we've briefed the committee a number of times on the different partnerships we've been exploring, and as we learn, as we move on, you become more and more aware of the challenges that we experience when we actually try to put these partnerships together. So partnerships is the buzzword. We hear it everywhere. At the moment, everything comes down to, but we need partnerships to increase the funding, etc., for the department, to enable private sector partners to help us meet our deliverables. It's a very, and I'm sorry if I'm going to be quite flippant now, it's a very feel-good, fuzzy word that we think is going to unlock all opportunities in the sector. But when it comes to the reality of actually trying to get these partners into existence, we find that organizations that approach government are not always doing it with the intention of ensuring that government's best interests are being met. And that's where the crux of the matter becomes a challenge. It's that when a partnership is explored, it needs to be a mutually beneficial partnership. And that's where the department is headed at the moment. So what we're trying to do when we pursue these partnerships is to ensure that they're sustainable, and to ensure that we can maintain that partnership and we can promote further partnerships. So one partnership leads to many others within that particular area. And we need to ensure that we embed the governance of this partnership, how it works, and how projects benefit both. So they must be meted to both partners in facilitating this partnership. We focused our energy or our strategic partnership vision around sustainable relationships and increasing our departmental visibility within the sector. How we best mobilize our resources in order to enhance delivery. So using private sector resources to enhance our own delivery. How we enhance consumer education and consumer readiness, because if a consumer is ready, they spur the economy and they meet our goal through affordable housing, really. And how we create an enabling environment for our partners is also critical. And finally, we need to look at how we provide research, property management analysis, those kinds of things to support our partners going forward. What we've tried to do, and Anwar will give some more information or input into this as within his presentation, is we've now developed almost a partnership feasibility analysis document, which looks at things like what are the drivers for the partner. So what are our drivers and what are their drivers? What are they going to get out of this in the end? And then looks at how we determine roles and responsibilities before we even begin to engage on what the partnership is going to contain. And then how the partner, when they come into the department for consideration, can show us that there's an equitable distribution of cost and benefit. So it can't be the department carries all the cost and the partner benefits. If, for example, there's a piece of land, they can't just put the piece of land on the table if it's got no land rights, if it hasn't been subdivided. If the expectation is that we will fund all of that and they just come into the party with a piece of land, that isn't an equitable partnership. So with that, I just wanted to introduce the topic, and Minister Swartz. Mr. Swartz will go into it a bit with a bit more detail. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Swartz. Over to you.
Ms. Maseko, we seem to be having problems getting him into the meeting. IT is still working on it. If you can just give him a couple of minutes, please.
Okay. Members, you just heard if we can allow Mr. Swartz to just be with us.
I don't necessarily have the presentation because we were making some final adjustments. But what I could potentially do is start and just go over some of the partnership framework feasibility criteria that we've been working on. If that, oh, well, here's the presentation.
Okay, there's a presentation. Thank you very much.
Okay. Can I just check, Shamiz, is this the presentation that Anwar forwarded you, or it was forwarded to you by the department on Friday?
Yes, this is the one that was forwarded on Friday. I didn't get an updated one.
Okay, good. Okay, if with your permission, I'd like to just throw up an Excel spreadsheet, if that's okay, because it will then show the feasibility, the partnership analysis document that we've been using. It was summarized much prettier into slides, but since we're struggling to get Anwar here, perhaps we can start just having a look at this, if that's okay.
I think we just got him admitted.
Yeah, I think I saw that we just admitted him in.
Good morning.
Morning, Mr. Swartz.
Good morning, Honorable Maseko. Apologies, I struggled to get in, I see.
Yeah, no,
Anwar,
you're,
Anwar Sadi, the whole meeting is waiting for you to load your presentation, please.
Okay, I will
Thank
do
you.
so. Thank you, Camilla.
okay.
Can I just, are you able to see the presentation at the moment?
Yes, you may hit the ground running, Mr. Swartz.
Okay, so good morning. I don't know, maybe Kamala has indicated that we will go over the partnerships that is within the Department of Human Settlements currently. And so the first part is I'm just going to give an overview of the presentation format. So the first item is the partnership feasibility criteria that we use to assess partnerships and to decide whether to continue or request for further information. That would be the first item. Then the second would be the employer-assisted housing partnerships. And there are three that we will be focusing on, which is the Langenberg, APL Cartons, and the Tronox partnerships. Then the third section is the affordable housing sector partnerships. So that would focus on social housing more specifically, and then also research partners within the department. Then moving on to the next slide, which is your partnership feasibility criteria. Kamla, I'm not sure if you want to take this or do you want me to go through this? No.
Anwar, you can go ahead. I've already given an introduction to it, so
Sure.
you can just give some more detail. Thank you.
Okay. So what the department has done, because we have been approached by so many interested parties who are interested in doing partnerships, but there is a point that we need to decide whether it is a feasible partnership to continue with. So what we have done is to do we've got a document which we use, which is called the Partnership Feasibility Assessment Document. And what that basically entails is we ask a list of questions and to give an overview of the partnership, the organization, and the financial model of itself, if it's possible. So the first item that we do request is information about the organization itself. So that focuses on the category. So would it be an employer-assisted housing partnership? Some focus on financial support, those kind of questions that we do ask, like banks in that scenario. Then the second item that they need to complete is the partnership context. So basically, specifically on these partnerships, we ask what are the objectives that they wish to achieve, right? As well as what is the organizational alignment. So I'm just touching on a few items which is critical when we do assess. So in terms of the organizational alignment, we can't do a breach when it comes to human settlements, for example. So we need to see how does it align to our strategic goals. And at the moment, we've got three, that is the informal settlements, affordable housing, and looking at the most needy. And then we also look at the potential benefits for all parties. So different to the other programs necessarily is that when it comes to assessing benefits, if it's a private partner, they have certain, there's benefits for them as well. And I'll touch on that present when I go through the specific projects, you'll see how I focus on that. And then also what is the benefits for the department, such as we will be able to provide specific subsidies within the department. We will be able to assist the specific community. And then we look at the risks and the strengths as well within this partnership context. Then we break it down a bit further, which is then the partnership specific. We define the partnerships. The question that we do ask is, who does the department help? Who will we be helping, and who will the company, if it's a company, will they be helping? So we will look at, if I use Langenberg for an example, the criteria would be farm workers within the area, and it would also be employees within the area and people from the waiting list. Then what we need to know is what is the role of each organization as well as government, because this is basically the devil in the detail, where we then say government's role would be to provide subsidies to from a municipal point of view to include bulk services, and then what is the organization's role and responsibilities. That gets us to the answers of they will assist with transfer of the units, etc. Then the big question is, what is the resources at hand? That is from both from our side and the partnership. So we look at the financial, the human capital, and then the technical capacity within the partnership. Then if we move on, what we also need to establish is what is the geographical context of this partnership. So we would ask some partners approach us, and we would ask them, do you service the whole province, or are you only within a specific municipal area? We go down on the town as well, and the reason for these questions is essentially to understand what is the overall plan for that municipality, focusing on all housing products that we have, and then what is this municipal support for the partnership. We do not pursue a partnership if we do not have municipal support or buy-in, so all these partnerships will need the support from the council itself. Then very importantly is what is the demand. So we look at how many employees as an example. I've just put that an example in there. How many employees are we looking at? What is the number of beneficiaries? So even if we go on an employer-assisted housing project, there might be 100 employees, but then we also do have a need for the municipality's waiting list to be serviced. And that's where the question comes in, what is the number of beneficiaries? It will not necessarily be the same as that identified by the employer. We look at the income categories so that it falls within our requirements. So if affordable housing is a strategic direction, we will look at the income category up to 22,000. We will then split that because we provide different typologies as well. So we will split that in terms of those categories and indicate the percentage of employees within each category. As an example, we use affordable housing. So we need to look at the cost of a unit. So we can, if we build for 400,000, we need to be able to know that we do have purchases for that category specifically. And then, as I've indicated, what are the additional opportunities for the municipal waiting list, as we previously called it? Can the municipal waiting list be serviced to lower the demand within that specific municipality? Then we look at land requirements, because in land requirements, there's quite a lot of hidden costs that if we don't explore this, we might end up with a project that is over the cost that we estimated. So we look at who's the owner. Is it a private owner? What's the size of the land? What's the municipal value? And if I get to Langenberg, we will get to whether it's in the urban edge or not within the urban edge. How many units are we looking at? And whether the development rights are in place and the bulk services, because we will have to be able to answer, if it's not in place, how much will it cost the department or government itself to cover the cost of those services. Then we look at the equitable contribution of the costs and the benefits. So we've got a whole list of items to tick list. I've only highlighted a few and summarized it. The reason for this is to indicate all of these have costs involved, all of these items, and it allows for the option where the partner can indicate whether they will cover the cost, the full cost or part of the cost, and where does government have to come in. So what is important for us is training and capacity building. This is on all levels. And then the land purchase and rehabilitation. Most of the times that we have seen, the land comes in at zero, but we also need to look at items such as, is the cost involved for land rehabilitation and who's going to cover that? Then project management and professional fees as well. So we make provision in our programs as well for that, but we also do get partners who says that they will contribute to the project management fees, And then the developments is right, we need to establish, is it in place, when is it lapsing, and how much will it cost to get the development rights in place again. Then critical for this, because it's affordable housing, and there is not just where it comes to the department where we screen in terms of whether the people have previously received a housing subsidy in terms of the housing subsidy system. We also need to determine credit readiness with the banks, essentially to assess whether they will be able to afford to purchase a house. Then we look at bulk internal and electrical services. This will also be to determine if this is not in place, what is the cost, and we will cover the cost, because we know certain of the municipalities are interested, especially your rural municipalities, but the MIG doesn't have sufficient funds to cover all of that. Is the party that approached us for the partnership, are they willing to contribute? Then we look at the construction cost. So that is essentially your top structures as well, but also looking at the geotech and the NHBRC costs. And the question for all of these comes back to who will be responsible for these costs. Is it fully covered by the department? Is it fully covered by the municipality, or will it be a split between the parties? So that's just to give you an overview of what, when we get an application for a partnership, how do we go at once this has been completed, it is presented to our department's EXCO. EXCO then takes everything into account and makes a decision whether we as the department together with the municipality should pursue a partnership, whether we should go back to request more information, or whether the project is not feasible at all and we will not continue with that partnership. So the following projects have been presented to our EXCO committee. So in the EXCO, there's a committee specifically to focus on partnership projects, and based on those criteria that I've just mentioned, we've presented this to EXCO. So the Langenberg Employee Housing Partnership, it was initially only two employers who were interested, but then it grew over time because of, I will put it, the farmers and employers having engagements with one another. So it is essentially a partnership between the provincial government, the local government, and farm owners in the Langenberg municipal area. That is Ashton, Montague, Robertson, etc. The partners for this specifically is Arabella Wine, Zandvliet, and Tiger Brands. Those were the initial partners who approached the department and the municipality, but it is grown up to Prospect, Ashton, Canning, Koi Class, and then I've also listed the government institutions that were that is part of this. You will see Department of Environmental Affairs and Development Planning also formed part of it, and then I will elaborate as we go along. Then what is the organization's contribution to this partnership? So because we've got more than one employer, there's a number of options that they presented. They indicated they are willing to purchase land for a possible development, and the portion that was previously identified was the Provincial land. Then one of the partners, which is Zandvliet specifically, they will donate land at zero cost to the department. It is opposite Zulani in Ashton, and then they will contribute to the shortfalls applicable to the stop structures. So the cost of this will be determined at the later point once we understand the development cost. Then they will also look at pension-backed loans if needed, and they will also stand in as guarantor where it is required for the employees. Then moving over to the project specific in terms of the Langenberg employee-assisted housing. So the first partners that we do have was the Arabella. They've got 52 employees. Tiger Brands has got 162 employees. Zandvliet has got 66 employees, and the Yevel has got 8 employees. The others that I mentioned that form the partnership later on, we still have to determine how many employees are from that farms. Then what we have gone through, there were 3 sites that were initially identified. So there's 2 Provincial lands. So, the one is owned by N Provincial and the one is P Provincial. This is also in Ashton. The one is right next to the Zulani, and the other land portion is opposite Zulani. But looking at the planning that would have been involved in the Provincial land, because it's private land, the cost still needs to be determined, all those, and rezoning because it's agricultural land. We opted specifically the municipalities council has indicated that we can explore going with the site which is called the Zulani site. That is on the it's across the R60. It's opposite Zulani. It's a privately owned land, and they're willing to donate this. It will also cater for the number of persons that we wish to accommodate. So just to give you an overview of the site, it's an overview of the site itself. This should be Ashton, I apologize. So it's 18 hectares piece of agricultural land across Zulani. It is outside the urban edge when we started with this development. It is ideally located in terms of existing infrastructure, so it's close to bulk, sewage, electrical supply, and potable water. So as you can see, the R60 runs there, there's Zulani, and here is the portion of land that we are referring to. Then moving over to the status, the progress, and the way forward that we've identified. So as I've indicated, was presented to our EXCO, that was in February 2020, with actions that we need to focus on. So we need to assist Langenberg municipality with the planning, which the department has engaged with the municipality, and then facilitate discussion between the farm owners we've put in there and the municipality, and establish the most suitable land parcel for partnership and beneficiary administration. So on these items as well, all of these has been attended to, and I'll just give you an overview of the progress. So the Zandvliet portion was not included was not in the urban edge. It is now within the urban edge, and the municipality's spatial development framework was amended. And the way forward that we've agreed on with the municipality is relying quite extensively on the department to assist when it comes to the planning that is planned for this development, as well as engaging with the partners. So the municipality will submit a project initiation document to the department in the month of August, which is next month. This is specific to get the planning processes underway, and it also relates to funding available for planning. And then council previously supported it, but we do require a formal notification to the department to confirm that they are in full support of the development. So this is with the progress and the way forward for the Langenberg project itself. Then moving over to the next partnership, which is APL Cartons. They are in Worcester within Breda Valley. Just a brief overview of the company. They employ about 900 individuals. They focus on social. They've got a social outreach program to enhance not only the employees, but the community themselves. And they allocate funds for housing projects. And in the overview, specifically in terms of this partnership, they want to assist as many employees as possible, even though we will be focusing on affordable housing. They will also look at the other categories, which is below your 3,500 mark. The parties to this partnership is APL Cartons themselves. It's the APL Cartons employees, and then the various government departments, as well as the financial institutions, which is your banks. Then essentially the objectives of the partnership is APL Cartons will provide financial and human capital. The department, the municipality itself will look at units planned within the municipality, and we know there is the catalytic project, which is Transex in Worcester. And what they require from us is the provision of subsidies for the employees, and this will essentially be the FLISP subsidies. Then the benefits to the organization, as I've just broken it down, it will give security of tenure to the employees of APL Cartons, and because they are also heavily involved in community development, they will do contributions towards that. For government itself, it will be to service the waiting list, provide subsidies from our department, and then to strengthen the relationship with the banks that we currently have. The key question here is, what is APL Carton's contribution to this partnership? So they have a pool of funds available that they will provide for the development of the top structure, so they could cover top structure costs as well. They will, for possible land purchase within the Breda Valley municipality if there is nothing available. And then they've got an additional housing subsidy. At that point, about a year ago, it was 850 Rand to assist. Then they will stand in as guarantor. And then the big one key item that they said, they will cover the attorney fees. So that is for transfer fees and bond registration. In terms of human capacity, they have been very helpful from the admin side in providing the department with the information of the employees, so that we are able to determine from the banks the buying power of their employees. Just to give you an overview of the demand specifically for these employees, so there's 165 employees. The income categories, as you can see, falls within the department's FLIS program. So the employees between 3,500 and 7,000 is 54% of that. Then 7,000 to 15,000 is 39% employees falls in that category, and the 4% is within the upmarket of FLISP, which is your 15,000 to 22,000. 1% is above the market that we as the department cater for in terms of our housing subsidy programs. Then the progress that we've made in terms of this partnership, we've completed the pre-approval scannings of the beneficiaries, essentially to see whether they've previously owned, whether they do qualify for a housing subsidy. We've solidified the discussion for the partners, that is the banks and APL cartons themselves, to assist when we get to that screenings. They have submitted all the information, but we will have to update that information in light of COVID and the few months that has passed to determine whether they still have buying power. So we've completed that screening. We've received the information in terms of the income, expenditure, and provided that to the financial institutions. The way forward on this is because the development within, I think it's about 8,000 units being planned in Worcester as part of the Trans-Ex Catalytic project, is to accommodate them within that project once it's constructed, because the project itself makes provision for FLIS housing. Okay, so that's in terms of APL cartons. Then we do have another proposal that was also presented to EXCO. I'm just gonna briefly touch on the slides. So you'll see it's called Andisa FT in Tronox. So the department was approached by Andisa FT. Essentially what Andisa FT does is they're an independent financial services company. They focus on the gap market and they provide funding for top structures of a development. They were then in contact with Tronox themselves, which we know is the mining company in the West Coast. So an overview of Tronox, they've got about 7,000 employees. They're listed on the New York Stock Exchange, and then they're situated in the West Coast, employing about 1,168 employees. The overview of this partnership, it's a partnership between two municipalities that we're envisaging, which is Matsikama, Saldanha, and then it will be Andisa, Tronox, and the financial institutions. With this one, you'll see we've specifically highlighted the bank, and I will indicate why we've raised Standard Bank. The objectives is the same as we've previously indicated, so I'm not going to go too much, but it's the same roles from all parties. Then the benefits to this partnership, again, is security of tenure to the employees of Tronox, because they also do believe access to employment and housing increase productivity of the employees. So there's an advantage of that to the company itself, and the benefits for government remains the same. What is the organization's contribution? And here we're referring to Tronox. So they've got a pool of beneficiaries that they will make available for the development which they want to assist. Donation of land in the municipality. They will also contribute to land purchase. They're running an extensive employee financial fitness program. They will contribute to research and development, as well as project management fees and professional fees. They take full responsibility for beneficiary analysis and credit worthiness. So basically those that aren't ready to purchase a property at this point, because of their credit record, they will take responsibility for the cost to rehabilitate their employees to get to a point where they are able to buy. They will assist with funds for internal services, as well as the construction of the units, including the geotech, as I have mentioned earlier, and the important part is fencing to prevent invasion within that area. That will be the contribution from their side as well. Just to give you an overview of the demand, there's 500 employees. The two critical areas is the 7,000 to 15,000, where they've got 20% of employees there, and then 15 to 22,000 income is between 30% is between 15,000 and 22,000. The remaining 50% is the above our category that we service as the Department of Human Settlements. I'm going to just briefly touch on this because it's just to give an indication as to how they have progressed and their commitment towards the partnership themselves from Tronox and Andisa. So they have a housing solution pillar. So the one is first employee credit worthiness. Pillar 2 is the housing subsidy. Then 3 is housing development. And then the fourth one is an employer housing subsidy. So due to COVID, this has been a bit delayed, but they are looking at alternative ways to continue with the process by doing a pilot. So they have commenced last year with employee credit worthiness trainings. As of just 1 second, please. Apologies. So the purpose with this is to understand the credit record of the employees and how do we get them to a point. So they have run the workshop within Saldanha Bay Municipality and Matsikama. So it was full week sessions with all the employees. And for those that aren't in a position that needs rehabilitation, they were put into a specific program. We as government were then approached to assess what our role in this partnership could be. So those are just the 4 pillars. I'm not gonna discuss this in detail, but for them, what they have seen is they've called it what's the burning platform. And the important slide on this is the household debt to income ratio is at 72%. And based on that, they commence with running these programs. I'll just give an overview of the employee financial fitness program. So that it's a 5-phase project there. So the first, they did the diagnosis, and that was done through last year. They ran the financial literacy program, and then from there included the people in the rehabilitation program. We'll reach then, which is the 4th stage, financial assistance stage, where Tronix itself will assess what assistance the employees require to be able to afford a house. And then the last phase is the first home financing assistance that will be provided. Then in terms of housing typology, so this focuses more on Andisa itself, on the housing typologies that they provide, and that's where the discussion between Tronox and Andisa comes in. Andisa will essentially cover the cost of the top structures. So the housing typologies that we're talking about, there's a mix of apartments. So we've got semi-detached and freestanding units, and it ranges between 50 and 55 square meters. Then we've got the high-end bond houses. This is 250 square meters. It's 3-bedroom and it includes a garage. There's also the 2-bedroom houses with 2 bedrooms, allowance, a kitchen and a patio. And it's about 50 square meters. We've got the double-story 3-bedroom house. It's a 600 square meter site, also includes a garage. Then the duplex unit, which is 3-bedroom. It's got a garage included as well. And it's 150 square meter. Then in terms of the progress, again, what was supported by Department's EXCO to pursue the way forward that we have done. So the financial literacy sessions, as I've indicated, they've commenced last year, but due to COVID, there was some, it was obviously delayed, but between engagement with all the parties, they are continuing with the literacy training compliant to COVID-19 guidelines. So all of the partners are currently either doing it virtually, the meetings with the persons, and even with the attorney that they've appointed in terms of credit worthiness. They are looking at what's the credit worthiness of the employees that they didn't get to yet, and because of the COVID-19 period, but this doesn't necessarily affect them, but the household income, job loss in case of a spouse, and then they will enroll within the employee indebtedness program. The next step that we will also have to do in the discussions with these municipalities has started, as I've indicated, Matsikama, is that to identify Tronox-owned land and municipal-owned land. Both of these parties, as indicated, there are available land portions within the area. And the decision as to where a possible development could take place, depending on land ownership, that is also underway. Once we have all the details are finalized, the number of employees that do qualify, the step will be to meet with the municipality and then identify the suitable portion of land, whether it be Tronox-owned land or municipal, or it can be a combination depending on the demand within that area. Okay, so that is essentially on the partners within the rural areas where we look at providing housing specifically. Then we also do have sector partners in terms of affordable housing. The department has entered into a partnership agreement with the major financial institutions. This is essentially when we do go out to municipalities, and we've run with a few open days in Mossel Bay, Drakenstein, and other municipalities to establish demand for affordable housing within those municipalities. We then obtain the information, and this is provided to the banks in order for them to give us an indication of whether the people will qualify for a bond, what is their buying power. So that is essentially the purpose of this agreement, where we submit the names and they will give us the results of those people. That's the pre-screening done. Then we've entered into a smart partnership agreement, which was approved by Drakenstein municipality. This is for the social housing development in Paarl. It's for 362 social housing units. In addition to that, the department has entered into partnership agreements with various social housing institutions, and they are represented at the department's Provincial Steering Committee, where one of the purposes of the Provincial Steering Committee is to discuss the business plan and the pipeline for social housing projects within the province. So just to, I'm not going to go over this, but these are some of the social housing institutions that we have agreements with, and I think such as Communicare and Medulla Moore, you would know that they've been doing developments within the Western Cape. They are primarily focused within the city of Cape Town, but there are social housing projects being planned outside of the metro. For the Louis Fourie Corridor project, which is in Mossel Bay, is one, as well as Drakenstein. So those are the social housing partners. Then the upcoming partnerships that we intend signing is with Mossel Bay Municipality. So we've just received news that they went out to they advertised during this week. Once this is done, and a smart partnership agreement will be entered into with Mossel Bay Municipality, essentially to roll out the social housing program, because it's only being run within the metro. Then from there, we also are, because there are social housing projects planned within George and Stellenbosch Municipality, we will conclude smart partnership agreements with those municipalities as well. All the municipalities are aware of this. They have had a part in this whole process, and their councils are aware of this as well. Then other partnerships specifically that we also do have within the department is the research partnerships. I do apologize for that. So, sorry, the first one that we do is the Fire Safety for Informal Settlement Study. This was an initiative with the Fire Engineering Research Unit of Stellenbosch University. The time frame was last year, 2019, up until June 2020, and the purpose of this partnership was to improve fire safety in informal settlements. And then added to that is more specifically what would be the response plan when we are faced with that. Then the second one is improving building quality in subsidy housing projects. This was a partnership with the University of Stellenbosch as well, with the engineering faculty. It commenced in the 2019-20 financial year, and the focus was to assess building quality for structural defects on using and maintaining the subsidy houses correctly. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Swartz. I don't know if Camilla, is there something that you want to add before I hand over to the members for the questions?
Yes, thank you, Chairperson. Just very quickly to just acknowledge we have briefed the Standing Committee previously on our attempts to get social housing going outside of the metro, and it's been a long, tedious process. We understand that capacity at the municipalities are not necessarily where they need to be. So it is rewarding after these last very, very difficult few years in trying to get them ready to see that Instraton's project has now been approved at the Social Housing Regulatory Authority. So our first non-metro social housing project is going to be in Drakenstein. That's a big achievement for us. Also, we've had the feasibility assessment in Stellenbosch, which we managed to get the SHRA to fund, and that's being completed as well. So now we're looking at precinct planning for Stellenbosch, and that's also really exciting. These partnerships take a long time to build, but they are beginning to bear fruit. And the Mossel Bay that Anwar's just alluded to, they finally advertise for their partners. Chairperson, it's a difficult process. The municipalities don't necessarily understand affordable rental housing, so they need hand-holding. And a simple thing, or what we would see as a simple thing as advertising, has taken an enormous amount of work to get to that point. In George as well, we're now seeing the Social Housing Regulatory Authority, the Department of Environmental Affairs within the province, partner with the Georgia municipality to develop a terms of reference for partnership feasibility or precinct feasibility for social housing. And we're again going to apply to the Social Housing Regulatory Authority to fund that initiative. So partnership isn't necessarily just brick and building. It's about, like I said earlier, creating an environment for our partners to thrive within a particular area, because what they then do is they take their capital and inject it into that municipality to meet our affordable housing goals. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. I think it's quite, you have given us quite enough today, and it's quite interesting, a topic that we are going to go on for quite some time to get a grip of everything that is happening, although it's really good news to us, and I suspect to the members also they feel the same way. Members, I'm going to open up for the questions or clarities. Can I go in this way, Member van der Westhuizen? I see your hand, and after it will be Member Smith, Member Derrick, and Member Maran. In that order. Over to you, Member Andrikas.
Good morning, Chair. And Chair, my apologies for joining you some 8 minutes late this morning. I was in programming committee, and I do hope somebody submitted my apology. Chair,
Yes.
Thank you very much to the officials for the presentation, and particularly for the hard work behind this presentation and to make these projects feasible projects. It's really exciting, Chair. I can show you here in the area that I know best, Stellenbosch, many of the existing neighborhoods have been developed through the assistance of employers in the past. And I believe there are, and I don't think I'm exaggerating if I say there are thousands of employers, be it big employers like mining companies, but particularly also smaller employers who have had employees working for them for 20 years, 30 years, and who would just love to see their employees obtaining ownership of their own house. And therefore, I'm really excited about what we've learned this morning. My question is in the first, just what has been the experience? You know, I only joined this committee last year, and surely these can't be the first partnerships of this nature. Have there been other partnerships in the past where you've also been able to unlock additional support by partnering with employers? Then secondly, Chair, in terms of the study on fire prevention and fire control, I'm absolutely delighted. I think it's one of the realities that we know, that in our informal areas, we see just too many fires, too many loss of life, too many loss of worldly possessions. And if we could develop best practices in that regard, it would be wonderful. But could I ask that we also ask the department then to go and look at when they engage with the universities and others doing these studies, that we also look at fire prevention in backyard structures, because that is another reality of South Africa today, that many people, because what the government can provide is limited, that they then allow others, or they need then to put up backyard structures, often from material which is highly, can I call it, volatile or fire prone. And as we know, many of the people also use equipment like the Primus or a candle that is quite dangerous when you compare it to for example, electricity. And then lastly, Chair, can I just ask, there was just a quick reference during the first partnership there at Langenberg that where you referred also to individual farmers that would like to come forward. And my question is therefore, to what extent can, in such projects, we open up these projects not for one or two big employers, but also to involve those people that only employ, a small number of people, perhaps even only one or two, because as I've said at the beginning, I think there are many employers that have got the means to assist, the willingness to assist, but however are looking for opportunities, and there seems to be as if they come to a dead end when they raise this with our municipalities. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Member. Member Maran, or who's next? Okay, I don't see any hand.
I was last,
Okay.
I think it was Smith,
Member Smith?
then me.
Okay, Member Smith, are you there? Okay. Member America, are you there?
No, I'm here, Chair. All I'm saying, we've been presented with a 49-slide presentation. Would have been useful if we have had the presentation beforehand. But I think safe to say is that the need is so great out there, and whatever partnership are being forged by willing contributors to alleviate the shortage is to be welcomed. And I think that based on the presentation, the department has done quite a bit. And for us who are new, this presentation serves as a basis now for us to monitor forward the implementation of the partnership. All I can say is that wish the department all the best, and as my colleague says, that we need to broaden the circle and bring in whoever wants to become part of the solution, bring them in our fold and allow them to make a contribution or assistance. But from my side, I think that the department's on the right track in terms of bringing in partners. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, Member. Member Smith, are you back, or must I go to Member Maran? Member Maran, over to you.
Thanks, Chair. I'm not sure what the honourable member meant when he say beforehand, because I've gone through this presentation last night and it was uploaded on Microsoft Teams. It was there. I'm not sure whether the honourable have missed it. But as it may, Chair, I just wanted to check if you look, for instance, at the listed partnerships, APL, Tronox, and then Langenberg. And it seems then that the Langenberg one will be different because there we are dealing specifically with farm workers.
And
APL,
Tiger Brands.
Pardon?
And Tiger Brands also, yeah. Tiger
Brands, is it farm workers or factory workers?
Factory workers is both.
Yeah, no, there's a difference there. So I just wanted to check, Chair, those, and I agree with the Honourable Van der Westhuizen that we should open it up for other farmers who are also interested to buy into this particular partnership. Although it was said, for instance, it is outside the urban ads and the land is suitable. It's opposite Zolani. There is infrastructure. I'm just my fee is just close by the sewage work, and I'm not sure how then it will affect those people that will stay near that particular sewage work. Chair, there's a project, and I hope that these particular partnerships will not impact negatively on existing projects. I know, for instance, during our visit, we went into Kobela. There's a project which is called, for instance, Earth 136, 171 service plots. And I'm told, for instance, that this financial year they will not put up top structures, although there's infrastructure. And that's a bit worrying because we have visited that particular area. So I hope, Chair, these partnerships will not impact negative on those particular projects that's already up and running, where they will be put back maybe a year or two or so. That's the one. Chair, then the second one is Transax. And I've heard the representative said that when it comes to APL it's a huge company, Carton and so forth. They got, I think, close to 900 workers, and they want to assist as much as possible of those workers. The category is there. The percentages, for instance, 1% within 3,500, and then there's another percentage, 3,500 to 7,000, and 7,000 to 15,000 after that. I just want to check in that Transax projects, how many plots will there be in total for FLISPs? And I also want to check, Chair, because I know at some states that municipal workers, for instance, who falls within that category, at that stage they've also formed like groupings and go to a bank, see where they can get funding and so forth into that particular. How much of these plots will APL take up, and how much will be left for others who are not part of APL? How will they be affected by this particular partnership? Thanks. Let me stop there, Chair.
Okay, thank you very much. And just for the presentation, I think it was loaded last week. I saw it from last week, members on the MS Teams. So this one, why it has more slides is because it has been updated, so there is more information to it. But the initial one that procedural officer put on when we started the meeting is the one that we received last week.
Yes.
Is Member Smith still here? I don't see.
I'm here, Chair. I'm here.
Okay. Okay. The platform is all yours, member.
No, thank you, Chair. I have no questions. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you very much. I think from my side, just one that I missed, maybe I was not listening. The partnership with the greenhousing because of the problem of the water scarcity in the rural. Are we going to have the building that is going green, or we are going to continue as normal? Or in those projects is one of the considerations that the department has to implement or already has implemented? Because also on the research, I didn't see anything that has to do with trying to introduce the green economy within those projects. Is there in Transax maybe something like that for that project, because it's one of the biggest projects that the department is implementing now? Over to you, Mr. Swartz.
Thank you, Mama Ms. Maseko. If I can just begin, if that's okay.
Yes.
Okay, so I'll just ask some of the directors that are in the room to help answer some of these questions. But we acknowledge your input, Member van der Westhuizen, in terms of best practice, fire prevention in background structures, and we will take your inputs through to our policy units. The individual farmers coming forward, we agree. These are not the only initiatives that we are exploring, but these are the ones that have gone through our partnership exco, which we can definitely say the department is putting a lot of effort toward. We're also working on something in Swellendam, for example, where we're trying to bring more farmers in. And we've gone, for example, in Mossel Bay, we try to meet with the business chambers, we try and meet with the different organizations that are there. So there definitely is room to open up the opportunities to more than just a certain group of employees, and we will find, or we are trying to find ways to encourage broader consultation and broader engagement in that regard. The crux of the matter, though, is it must be mutually beneficial. So if the employer would like to come into the party, he has to have some skin in the game, for lack of a better word. He needs to help his employee, besides just what the department would offer that employee. Member America, I just want to acknowledge your input and thank you for the support that you've given. The partnership process is it looks quite thankless and it looks like effort that you're putting in that takes ages to wield. So we really appreciate the acknowledgement. Thank you. Member Moran, your input on if it will impact negatively on existing projects, that's a very real question. And that's why we need to be careful on the number of projects that we necessarily support. We create expectation from partners when we don't necessarily have the financial resources to honor our commitment to that particular project, which is why we've begun to screen projects so diligently so that we can determine what the financial resource requirement is, and that we can see that whatever we contribute is yielding fruit, that it's not just us pouring money into a project and that person isn't or the partner isn't coming to the party. So if we could have helped 5 people with our resources, we need to show that with that same amount of resources, because of that partnership, we're now helping 30 people. And that would be the basis on which we almost begin to prioritize these partnerships. Because at the end of the day, the demand exists in that municipality. If we can find a way to unlock that demand sooner using less resources, then that's what we should be prioritizing. And then if I can just refer, I've asked Mr. Brian Denton, he will just give Member van der Westhuizen some history in terms of how farmers have engaged with the department previously, perhaps just to give some oversight in that regard. I will ask Mr. Swartz if he has got any input on Transex, if that's possible, just to give some input. Thank you.
Okay, good morning, Chairperson. Good morning, honorable members. Morning, colleagues. Just a little background. This partnerships that I'm going to refer to is let's call it the unwritten partnerships, but where we have partnered with farmers. I'll mention a few. Most of you probably heard already of Haarlem in the Southern Cape. That was a small farmer who actually, as Kamala was saying, brought to the table some funding. He got some donor funding as well. We initially started with 50 houses. That was expanded to another 50 houses. Then that is done via the individual non-credit linked subsidy. Through the years, we've been partnering with many farmers, whereby our subsidy, which is currently 168,000, and normally the farmer would either buy a piece of service land from the municipality, or they will avail a piece of land and contribute. And I mean, partnerships that we've done there through the years included Langenberg, Ceres Fruit Growers, Ernie Els, Graham Beck. But that's on small scale, so it's not massive projects. It's 5 or 6, 7 there. I'm currently also in discussion with on the Swartland on the west coast, Malmesbury side, where there's also farmers that are interested. It's just a very long, tedious process in terms of getting the land rezoned, etc. That's all farm workers. Another honourable member was talking about specific farm. The bulk of the guys that I am assisting is farm workers. But then we also have, again, currently I'm busy with 150. It's called a Bandika Trust. This is person's housing project, private housing project that went wrong. Some Mr. Bandika is a very well-known person on the Cape Flats, very rich person. He bought up these properties years ago. He was trying to get out, but we are now in an advanced stage whereby he agreed to actually reduce the selling price of these houses. So again, via the individual subsidy, we'll be giving us people ownership of these houses. Yes, so I think just one of the things that's obviously threatening the partnerships is the fact, and I think we shouldn't lose sight of it, that our budgets has been cut last year, this year, and going forward. So it's difficult, like Kamila was mentioning, to when you go into these partnerships to make provision for the funding is definitely a challenge for us. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Is all the questions, the first round of the questions being answered?
There is, sorry, I was going to speak to Transix. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Mr. Swartz?
Thank you, Honourable Chair and Kamila. So in terms of Transix specifically, if we look at the question relating to APL Cartons, so APL Cartons has got 165 employees. For Transix itself, the scoping exercise must still be done, but the intention there for the first phase is to do 350 flips units within the first phase of Transix. But once we've done the scoping, we will be able to give you the final numbers in terms of flips that will be allocated for the Transix development. Essentially, the overall top structures for Transix's phase 1 will be 800, where 350 at this point is earmarked, but we can't confirm yet that the 350 will be for FLISP in the Transix development. And on the question on how do we make provision for other farmers or other people within the category, I think we also need to just take cognizance that because of FLISP, it is not just a subsidy that is not linked to finance. So there might be people that do not qualify for FLISP subsidy and other purchases that will need to be approached or can approach whichever development to form part of it. One criteria for all of the partnerships that we do have is that it mustn't only cater for the specific partner that we approach. So for all of the projects is intended to service the municipal waiting list as well. However, when it comes to FLISP specifically, it's not dependent whether you are on the waiting list. It is primarily subject to whether you will be able to qualify for a bond. And on that basis, you could then be included in those projects. So we will look at the various options within the municipalities. So if there is a FLISP list that we have within those municipalities, we can use that list as well if certain do not qualify. But it's not as simple as you've been on the waiting list for 5 years, so we need to take you, or you're living within that area. You might be on the waiting list for 20 years, but if you do not qualify for a bond, we will, however, not be able to assist with this program. So those are the things that just needs to be taken into account when selecting people who qualify, and also when we are approached by different partners. For Langenberg specifically, and in terms of Tronix themselves, it's not going to only be available to the APL cartons, as we mentioned, or the list of employers within Langenberg that we have indicated. It will be open to others as well on those criteria that I have indicated. The department has been running separate processes with the municipality. For Breede Valley as an example, where there were open days to identify other potential purchases that will be able to qualify for bonds and for units within the various developments. Thank you, Chair.
If I can finish off, if that's okay, Madam Chair.
Yes, you may.
Thank you. Just to then also, the question that was raised about APL cartons and the number of employees. The department is trying to use multiple approaches. So our credit readiness program, which we've told you about in previous standing committees, we've invited people to open days and we're helping put them through a credit readiness program. We'll also create beneficiaries within that area. And that was an open advert in the newspaper to get people to come in and pre-screen. So what we're trying to do is just balance, like what Anwar just said. People need to be able to get approval at the bank, and we need to enable that. So whichever mechanisms we have, that is a massive challenge. The bank, the current or the approval rating, if people apply to the bank without credit readiness, we're looking at 1.5 to 2 out of 10 being approved. So we're trying different tools to enable or create an enabling environment for affordable housing, and the employer assisted program is one of those things. The last question, Madam Chairperson, that you asked was about green technologies. So for and you mentioned Transix specifically. So the project manager has said to me that they use the Muladi system in Transix, which I understand is molds where they pour things into it, etc., etc. I have asked that he will prepare something to submit in writing to the standing committee, particularly in relation to the green technology being used at Transix, if that's okay with you. I also would suggest that we be allowed to submit something in writing in terms of the implementation of green procurement in state subsidized housing in the Western Cape, because our policy and research team have been working on that document as well. And it is intended that in this financial year that we will workshop updated provincial norms and standards for construction, for green procurement with our different municipalities. I can suggest that we submit something in writing to you in relation to just summarizing this document, and then we can always come back and take it a bit further with a standing committee if that's requested. Thank you very much.
Okay. Thank you very much. I think, and Member Maran talked about the issue of the stands in Ngubela in Robertson. And I know the last term, municipality like Langenberg has got the different database for every town. They don't have the consolidated database or the joint database. And the problem that we always had, Member Maran, was the projects were happening only in Ngubela because of the infrastructure that is there. But that is sort of leaving the other towns, that you have the old people in other towns that are not benefiting from the allocation to Langenberg because of the infrastructure not being there or the land parcels not being there, because Ngubela is municipality land. So we need to get the balance of saying that would a person in Montague move to say, I want to stay in Ngubela? They won't, because they feel they've been born in Montague, they want to stay in Montague. So we cannot disadvantage another communities that, as a standing committee in the last time, we said to the department, almost every financial year in Langenberg, the projects have been happening in Ngubela. The other towns have to benefit also. So that is the decision that was in the standing committee, that no, every project in Langenberg, mostly it's in Ngubela. When is the distribution of the allocation going to happen in another towns? One thing that I want to ask maybe from the department, when we come to the partnerships versus when you implement the project, like your BNGs, which one is cost savings? Let's make an example of the Tiger Bag that they say that their pension funds will do end versus when you are going to build a free housing in Zolani. Which one is costly? I mean, if we make a comparison of, let's say you are building about 162 houses for the same group and the same, that fall within the same program. but the other one is a partnership, the other one is not the partnership. Just for me to get the clarity, I always get confused to that effect that is partnerships adding value to reduce the pressure of funding to the department, or is also creating more burden to the department? And I recognize member Andrikas and after member Maran.
Yes, thank you, Chair. I would like to latch on to what you asked here. You know, how can partnerships assist and unlock further funds in order to assist more people in a time when we are seeing decreased budgets being available for human settlements? So that is my first question: is would there be a possibility of, not only looking at the maximum subsidy for each structure, but by taking hands with employers and other donor organizations, perhaps, to assist more people with the same budget? The second one is, it seems to me one of the important roles that employers are playing is to be the guarantor, and I hope I pronounce that correctly, for some of these housing loans, etc. And my question is, would that possibility be able to be extended also to people employing domestic employees or domestics? And then lastly, Chair, I know a number of these officials would be highly aware of a project called De Novo, which is within the Stellenbosch municipal area, although it's adjacent to the city of Cape Town. And my question is just because I know that in the past, some employers here in Stellenbosch also tried to become involved and offered assistance. Would this project, for example, also still qualify for some partnership benefits, if I can coin that term? Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Member. Member Maran, I see your hand.
Yes, Chair, thanks. Chair, I've heard now your explanation in terms of existing projects and previous projects, for instance, like in Kobela, where most of the housing projects were happening. I also think that Zolani were part of that, where there was a lot number of housing projects. And then you concluded to say it will be unfair for a person who stays in Montetjie now to take up a house in Kobela. A person in Montetjie wants to stay in Montetjie, and I fully agree with you. But why didn't it apply to Touws River, the Dorings, and Rossenville? Because Transex, for instance, when I asked the question, and I've said yesterday in the standing committee meeting, the response by the HOD, why they're not going to build houses in Touws River, in the Dorings, and Rossenville, is because the economic opportunities is in Worcester. And therefore, if a person wants to have a house, he needs to go and take up a house in that particular project if he qualifies. That's the one. A person in the Dorings wants a house in the Dorings. The same for Rossenville, the same for Touws River. So I agree with you, Chair. But the department's approach is different from what we are saying. That's the one. Chair, these particular partnerships I fully support, because if you look at farm workers, for instance, and all these years where people have getting houses, they were basically at the end of the tail, at the end of the line. And it's over the last 5 years where we are seeing now that farm workers and some of the housing policies of municipalities is also saying now the different groupings that should be part and so forth, which include also farm workers. And I'm glad that there is these partnerships. But it should not be only, and I've heard the response from the department, for those who are listed. It should be opened up for others also. I understand when it comes to Transact, a person should qualify for a bond. I agree. This is Philips. I agree. And therefore, Chair, I think, and I've said that previously, for instance, there was individuals who have clubbed together, a person that works in a bank, a person that works in a municipality, and so you can, that falls within that category, have then said that we are a group, we are not part of APL, we are not part of other companies who are currently listed here. But we also, we have done a pre-check. We stand to qualify for a bond. How can we be part? I hear now the department say there was an advertisement in one of the newspapers, or maybe in the more newspapers, that people should come forward so that we can do a pre-check or take them through a process of qualification. And I haven't seen that. So even if it's not too late for those who can come forward who might qualify, if that opportunity is still there. And I'm specifically speaks now about the Transex one, because I foresee that if you're gonna only focus on one company that got money for its workers, it can be a guarantee, as it was saying. We might have problems with other groupings who does not fall or who does not work with those companies. Remember, that particular project is on the R60. We have seen protests, it's opposite Zwelathemba, and we should be careful how we're going to deal with that particular project if other groupings will be excluded. But yeah, in total, I am fully in agreement. I support these particular projects just to see, but it's, we are dealing with reduced budgets, and I'm not sure when we're gonna start implementing. It's gonna take some time. Also, what I was saying, it should not impact negative on other projects. That project's been stalled because we want to implement these ones. But as I've said, I'm fully in support of this. Thanks.
Okay, thank you very much. Maybe if the department can answer, when you do the adverts on the newspaper, on your website, do you also put those adverts so that maybe as we go to our constituencies and there's something, we can say always refer them to the website of the department to access those applications, and for those individuals that are earning about 18,000 that can qualify and maybe interested to stay in your Transhex. I think that's all from me. Who's going to take the questions? Mr. Swartz?
Thank you, Honorable. In terms of the projects itself and the marketing, so for each of the projects specifically, besides APL cartons, they are responsible for marketing strategy within each of the projects. So aside from what we as the department do, the project manager itself for the project, if I can use, we've got Jubilee in Vlakland. What they do is they need to have a marketing strategy to approach the whole community. So municipalities do run workshops on a weekend where they place adverts in the newspapers. The professional team themselves, they do advertise as well. But we can look into the request as well to make it available or who people can contact. But what if there are people interested on the website as well, there is information about projects happening and who can be contacted within the municipality, but we can look into that, Honorable Chair, if that is in order. Then if I can also answer the, sorry, Camilla.
Okay, Camilla, I recognize you.
Thank you, Chairperson. Sorry, Anwar, I didn't mean to interrupt you. You could have finished off. But if I can just, okay, I think the question from Member Maseko and from Member van der Vesterhuizen, partnerships, does it add value or add more of a burden? It's the magic question. Because packaging these partnerships can become a significant burden. It requires you going back and forth with a partner. And that has really also been the impetus to why we've started developing the stricter screening questionnaires. But I am going to ask my colleague Brian Denton just to talk money in terms of the cost of a BNG product and then the cost of implementing a project that really would focus on affordable housing in terms of unlocking partnerships. Then in terms of the guarantors for domestic workers, we've actually, we've had employers come forward that would like to do guarantee properties for, or guarantee a bond for the domestic workers. The challenge is that the FLIS policy hasn't always accommodated that. It is written in such a way now, but it didn't come with implementation guidelines. I will ask Brian Denton just to speak to that as well. The challenges in where an employer is actually willing to pay for the house for his worker, but the FLIS policy at the moment says that it requires a bond. So if you can just give us some insight quickly into the overview or the challenges in that regard and where we headed. In terms of de novo, yes, it is intended for more than just the beneficiary or the persons that are currently residing on that site, to plan for more beneficiaries than are currently there. So there will be an opportunity to look at potential partnerships from the surrounding areas with the municipality, looking at the housing demand database, etc. There will be that opportunity for de novo. And then the last, many of the questions, the last questions that came through speaks to the demand for FLIS exceeding the supply. And we've had that quandary all along, which is we've got the supply, but not necessarily demand. People can't afford or to access the bond. So what Member Moran is saying is that we're going to get to a position where demand exceeds supply, and then the magic waiting list challenge. If that were to happen, then I would be really happy that we've done our job properly. Right now, we don't see that. Maybe in the city of Cape Town, there's a bit more of a demand than supply, or there's demand, but not necessarily that they qualify in terms of demand. But I agree, we're going to face that challenge when it comes, in my opinion, when it comes to Kundradi, where the units, there's going to be way more demand than there's going to be units available. And we're going to need to develop some kind of FLIS criteria to show where we prioritize. And we're going to have to roll that out in the longer term, but that hasn't happened yet. It is on our agenda, though, and it's being discussed at Public Works and with the department in different committees on if we reach that situation, how we would begin to screen people. But if I can please hand over to Brian Denton. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Kamala. Yeah, that one sound like a prophet of doom, but it's only going to get worse. I've been chatting to some of my colleagues at the financial institutions, and already the decline rate of bonds has increased dramatically. Given the impact of COVID-19, the uncertainness, banks is obviously carrying a higher risk. So they're taking a more cautious approach when granting loans. So I think the qualifying at the bank level has just become a bit more stringent, and I think it's only obvious they are running businesses. So it is a problem. Regarding the review of the FLIS policy, I think it's been coming on now for the past 2 years at our national department. Currently, the policy says it must be a mortgage loan or housing loan, as we would call it. But it was looking into things like personal loans, pension-backed loans, etc. The pension-backed loans can be entertained in view of the fact that it's just a matter of the person's pension is being used as a form of collateral to strengthen their position in getting a loan. When we developed the FLIS policy initially, it was a bit concerning that the problem that was mooted was the fact that if you do a pension-backed loan, if something should go wrong, the guy don't only lose his house, he loses his house as well as his pension. So that is a bit concerning. So I think when the pension-backed loans are actually introduced, there needs to be some more conditions that somehow secure, or that only a percentage of the pension should be used to actually strengthen the financial liquidity. Yes, at the regarding the individual or the affordability, as Kamala said, that is a problem. And then supply of affordable products is still a bit, and yeah, I'm looking specifically, if you look at the sliding scale on the FLIS, we're working from 40,501 up to 22,000. You have the problem that obviously the bulk of the persons or the financial institutions are granting loans to persons earning 10,000 and upwards. So there is a new gap. What about those earning 3,501 to up to 10,000? The knee-jerk reaction from the national department was that what we will do is persons who cannot get the loan or up to earning between 3,501 to 7 can get a service site for free. That will be the once-off bite on the apple. So they get a service site for free, but they have to build on their own. But then the problem again, what happens to those persons 7,000 to 10,000? And here we truly need to look at how do we partner with persons like Nurture, etc., who grants loans. That is not, I would say, probably not linked to NCA rules, or it's more small loans where a person builds on an incremental basis. So you get a small loan of 20,000 to do your foundation, and after you've done that, you get another small loan to get some bricks, etc., and so you go along. So it's just not all a bed of roses. It's not all a bed of roses. There is a lot of negatives that's out there, which we are obviously hard working on to see how we can turn it around. But I think one of the things that the department is also doing is, with the program with the Department of Military Veterans, where we are trying to integrate the military veterans and FLIS units. Because if you look at the units that we're building for the military veterans, it's around about 300 to 350,000. And in doing so, I think that is a very much an affordable product for the persons in the FLIS category. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I see Mr. Swartz. I see your hand.
Thank you, Honorable Chair. If I just can add on the cost of itself. So the cost of whether a BNG or a FLIS unit will be more affordable or more expensive. In experience, if we look at when we engage on FLIS units to be developed, there's always the discussion around the cost of a unit. Will it be the selling price of 400, 500, 600, 7,000 Rand to make it affordable? So to answer your question, as in our experience, is it more difficult? Is it more expensive? I think it differs from project to project. So we're referring here to partnerships primarily because the people that we've been speaking about falls in the FLIS category. But there's also the option where partners could be for both, for all the categories of the housing programs, which would be the BNG portion that you have indicated, as well as the FLIS. When we talk about costs, what we have seen is that there are added costs coming involved. So it is on a project basis. So we might, if it's a project where land is being donated and dependent on where the land is situated, there might be costs involved where there's extra wastewater treatment works that we need to, that is required for that to get you to an additional 2 million Rand. Or you might require an access road at another project. So when we talk about costs, the top structure cost is easy to define which one is cheaper and which one is more expensive in terms of BNG and FLIS. But the hidden costs as you go into the project and you start with the development itself, then you see items such as electric lines having to be moved, whether we should go underground, that will increase the cost, wastewater treatments as well, all those kind of things adds to the cost of a development. So on that basis, as we then go along, so we start out where we can identify prior to the partnership, where we talk about bulk services, whether it's available or not, and who would cover those costs. So we can start with those engagements up front. So if you'd see with the projects that I have indicated, I have said that some of the partners will contribute to specific items which we've identified. So as we go along and when we get to the partnerships, what makes it difficult is it's sometimes more expensive because of the type of project and the nature of the project as well. But then it comes to that discussion point, who will contribute to what is government allowed to contribute to, because there's certain things that we can't. Then it's having to go back to a partner and say, but we can't do this, will you fund that part? And to bring down the cost is also where we go, will you contribute to the top structures? For an example, some employers may, some employers are not in a position to do that. So it's basically how you package the project, the project itself, and the commitment and what the different partners can bring, if I can use the word, to the party to make this project. So there might be cases, and I'll be honest in this, where a project might be more expensive. Then you look at the benefit of that project is, it is not our projects where we've gone up with the planning for years where you can indicate these are the specific benefits to the department because it's close to economic nodes, etc. If we're looking at this specifically, we're talking about people living on the periphery. So the intention or the benefit is different to a normal project being within the middle of the town. It's to cater for a different group of people, but the benefits are different. It's not just a financial benefit, it's a benefit to the community that brings about, and that's sometimes what we miss when we do a development. So the cost might be a bit higher, but there is different benefit. Then also when you go, I wouldn't say outside of the periphery as well, there's other, you will need different kinds of toilets, for example, which is more expensive. So those kind of things, depending on where the project is, pushes up the cost. So a partnership project might not necessarily be cheaper, but because of the requirements and the location, there are other benefits to both the department in showcasing that we can assist, not with only, and I think this will possibly answer to the question that we had, is we just want to bring people to towns, but the benefits would be to certain people where they are living in that area when they've identified a project. That is where we essentially have making a difference in another way, as opposed to just from a cost point of view. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much. I think that was all questions that the members asked. Members, is there any question that you feel hasn't been answered? Going once, twice, thrice, that means there's no any questions. I just want to thank the department. I think from the last term, we had discussions about the private partnerships for a very long time, and also the issue of the social housing, especially we're emphasizing your George and your Saldanha, because the Saldanha IDZ is there and people will be moving from the close by towns to go to Saldanha to try and get employment. And that doesn't mean that they want to live permanently there. It will be sometimes that they just want a place to stay whilst they are working. So the strides you have moved is really recognized, and also to acknowledge that our engagement also it sort of gets recognized from the department to try and implement some of the concerns that we see, that we hear from the communities as we move in our constituencies. And we really salute you for that. It's hard work because I was part of the Tiger Brands and the Arabella when it started, and I know it's still going to go a long way before we can get it, the department can get it in place. So thank you very much, Mr. Swartz, and also May August, thank you very much, and Brian, thank you very much, I appreciate that. Members, if I can release the department so that we can do the resolutions, and after adopt the yesterday's minutes, I will appreciate that. Thank you very much. You can go and rest if you are going to rest.
Thank you very much, ma'am. Enjoy the rest of your day, everybody. Bye.
Thank you very much.
Bye. Chair. Thank you.
Keep well.
Okay,
Bye.
Thank you, Mr. Swartz. I'm listening, Mr. Swartz. Okay, he's gone. Members, any resolutions from the engagement? Okay, the presentation was quite informative, I take it. And I think the resolutions that are there is the documents that the department said they will send to us. Shumis, you have captured that?
Ms. Maseko, I will just put that in quickly because I figured the committee didn't ask for it. They've indicated that they will send us the green tech, a report on green tech.
Yeah.
But I will enter that as we speak.
Okay. I don't think you have to do that now, Shumis. Can we agree with the members that that resolution was the only one, the green tech, and also the members, they can, because the presentation that they did now, they did add some slides. So I'm going to indulge the members to go and have a look at it, so that if there is something that they feel has to be added on the resolution, they can also email it to you, and then the next meeting we can adopt the minutes. Member Andrikas, I see your hand.
Thank you, Chair. Chair, I would like to propose a resolution, but just quickly
Okay.
the motivation and background. The officials have said that they find it very time-consuming and labor-intensive to deal with, let's call it individual cases of support for employees. You know, where people employ only one or two people, and they would like to assist those people. Now, I proposed, just like they have a little toolkit now for to measure partnerships against, you know, what are you going to bring to the table, etc., etc. I would propose that the department develops a similar toolkit, to use that word, whereby individual employers would be able to measure themselves, so that they don't come with requests of assistance when, you know, it's not in line with what the department could support. I do hope I express myself well. So,
yes,
so
you
for example,
did.
so if you have a document which says, listen, if you meet these criteria, then you know, come and talk to us, because I do believe that this has got enormous potential. Potential that we should unlock, particularly in a time when we see that we are able to provide fewer and fewer houses every year.
I agree with you. That is and for example, maybe if I can say this, when I was in Langenberg, there was a RDP house that I saw that it was for sale, and I had an old lady that was waiting for the house. And I went to the department because this lady was already on the house, and they used her subsidy to buy the RDP house, which it was one of the things that it can be used as a mechanism to reduce the backlog of the housing. As we see, the RDP houses are being sold. So there's a lot of information that we need to say to the department. They need to put that information on their website. We are living in a fourth industrial revolution. Their website has to be more informative for people to access information, to do their checklist before they can approach the department or the municipality to say, listen, I do have 3 workers that have been with me for 20 years, and I would love to help them like the Grembeck did with their workers. So they need to have that on their website. We don't have to really put on the newspaper to advertise. It has to be accessible 24 hours per day for people to know that, okay, now I'm doing the checklist. It's only step 7 and 8 that I don't qualify yet. I need to fix that. Then it's what will work for our communities out there. So I totally agree with you, member. Shumis, you are forcing us to adopt the resolutions as we see them now.
Yes, to indicate whether you are happy with the wording, then I can make the changes as we go along.
Okay, the recommendation, the first one, the committee requested that the department provide it with a report on green technology in Transhex and other housing projects. The committee recommended that the department create a toolkit where individual employees can measure themselves in order to qualify for a housing subsidy. Okay, let's see. The committee recommended that the department create a toolkit where individual employees can measure themselves in order to qualify for a housing subsidy. Member Andrikas?
Thank you, Chair. I was particularly also thinking of employers, where employers would be able to say, listen, no, now, I can't reach that, or yes, if it's 200,000 that is needed, or if I must sign surety for a specific amount, I'm up to it. So okay. I would also like it to not be limited to employees.
Okay. Okay, so it's perfect as it stands now. Shumis, can you move down? You fix that so that we can see. Okay. And that's all the resolutions. We are in agreement of that. Member Andrikas?
So, sorry, Chair, can I just say, in order to qualify for a housing subsidy, what I had in mind is a little bit more measure themselves in order to enter into a partnership with the Department of Human Settlements. How do you feel about that?
Yeah, it's exactly what you said. Okay, the committee recommended that the department create a toolkit where individual employees or employers can measure themselves in order to enter into a partnership with the Department of Human Settlements.
And we have the word against, where can measure themselves against in order to?
Yeah, I'm trying to see. No, it's not there. Shumis, against? In
yes,
order.
It's
yeah,
there.
It's perfect now. Alrighty. Okay.
Against comma. Can we add a comma? Thank you.
Oh yeah, no. Against comma. There we go. Member van der Westhuizen, you're covered there. Okay, members, with that, do we agree with those resolutions? Member Andrikas?
Yes, Chair.
Okay, are you in support of that resolution?
Yes, Chair. I trust that the department will be able to get the drift of what we want.
Yeah. Now, if they need clarity, we will give to them, or Shumis will do that on our behalf. She's here. Okay. So, members, Member America, are you in support?
Yes, I am, Chair.
Okay, thank you very much. Can we adopt the draft committee minutes of the meeting that we held on the 3rd of June?
I propose that we do, Chair.
Thank you very much. And seconder, and support Member Andrikas. And the next one, Shumis. Okay, the next one, the 15th of July. Can we also adopt the minutes of the 15th?
I'll propose.
Thank you, Member Andrikas. Member America?
A second, Chair.
Thank you very much, Member America. And the next is for yesterday, the 27th. Can we also adopt the...
I propose that we adopt, Chair.
Thank you very much. Seconder.
Support.
Thank you, Member America. And with that, Member van der Westhuizen, thank you very much. And with that, members, thank you for your indulgence. I really appreciate you and I salute you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. The meeting is adjourned. Thank you, Shumis and company.